Ex-cons. What is the most ducked up thing about prison that nobody knows about? Can employee relationships can be sneaky. When I was going through training to work in the prison system, I thought I'd never be caught dead doing favors or being friendly with an inmate. Eventually, after seeing the same inmate every day for months, cleaning your office, taking the trash, you realize they are human too. He wears a cross around his neck. He carries a bottle of adobo in his pocket for mealtime. He's active in church. He's a painter and loves pigeons. You find out his hobbies and bits about his life, and soon you see about getting him an extra blanket or a new pair of shoes, and you forget he stabbed his wife 9 times. Edit. Pocket not poker. Former prison librarian here. Dental care. Dentists won't fill your teeth. They will just pull them. No caps. No implants. Race. Prisons are still self-segregating in a lot of ways. When I worked in a prison in WV, one dorm had a black TV, controlled only by black inmates, and a white TV, controlled by only white inmates. On a culture, if you call someone a name or steal from them, the other person must retaliate to save honor. As a result, you will see a lot of black eyes in prison. Postage stamps are a form of currency. Many prisons censor what books come into the institution. At one prison I worked in, The Art of War by Sun Tzu was banned simply because of the title. I assure you that no one in admin had ever read the book. A neighbor of mine was locked up for murder and released sometime before I was born. It's one of those things where everyone knew about it but no one talked about it. I remember him telling me the story of why he was in there and what it was like. Very rarely did, and the most surprising thing in his experience was that the smaller, weaker, more vulnerable in general were typically left alone. It's only if you acted like a big shot did people want to fight you. Also, picking fights with said smaller, weaker, more vulnerable ones will instantly get you a non-stop flogging by other inmates until your spirit broke. My dad was in prison. In his situation, and in many others, you feel immense guilt after getting to know your fellow inmates. Because you're gonna get out, and they're not, ever. Sheet bombing. I had a friend go to prison for a drug-related crime. He had his own cell, and stuck to himself for the most part. Another inmate sheet into a water bottle, and filled it to the brim with water, and mixed it up into a slush. Said inmate then took the water bottle to my friend's cell, placed at the slit at the bottom of his cell door, and ducking stomped on it. Sheet water sprayed absolutely everywhere. While my friend was in the cell too. My friend's father worked in a prison. He had to quit because some coworkers neglected to give a woman her bipolar medication, just so they could see what happens. I don't know if it's much of a secret, but they didn't give some women sanitary products. So the women had to free bleed, and they'd get mad when their uniforms got stained. Everyone was so goddamn friendly. I was mad when I got out and had to deal with real assholes again. I think it was the fact that we all knew we ducked up, and there wasn't any reason to act different or hid anything. Granted, Minnesota prisons are nowhere near the toughest, haha. My ex said the same thing. Granted, he's a very large man. But he said that everyone he interacted with was kind and didn't want to be involved in any bullshit. Just a bunch of dudes quietly playing cards, reading, and being bored out of their minds. When you get out you miss the simplicity of choices. When you are in, all you think about is getting out and what you will do when that happens. Everything focuses around this. When you are out, at first, the input is enormous and a small part of you miss the simplicity. Close bracket. When you get out, the feeling of soft carpet on your bare feet is borderline orgasmic, and you'll never take it for granted again. My friend did 2 years for selling blow. He said carpet was amazing, and that he'd just go take walks because he could. Walking through a park, or hiking through the forest was something he never realized he took for granted. Not an ex-con, but former prison librarian. Inmates are not allowed to have intimate relations, including with themselves. They can get infractions for being caught masturbating. How shitty the toilets can be, especially when you have to share a cell or pod, and they basically have to listen to you shit in the middle of the night. Don't get sick. You'll probably die a horrible death. My brother is a co, and he told us why their inmates have shampoo and soap that comes in packets now. They used to have it in little bottles. Well, the guys would use up all their soap, and instead of throwing the bottle away, they would keep it and fill it with a combination of whatever bodily fluids they felt was appropriate and use it to hold up other inmates for their commissary. Like, if you don't give me your commissary, I'm going to squirt this bottle in your face. And when they said no and got squirted in the face, they got pinky. My brother said a lot of people had pinky. Sheet was always one of the ingredients in the bottle. Edit. Since so many people keep asking, commissary is like a general store for prison jail. They have food items, toiletries, and other things, although I don't know the specifics. Inmates get money in their commissary account either from their family or from whatever work they do, if that's a thing where they are. Also, I can't believe my most upvoted comment ever is about a sheet story my brother told me. They take your mugshot. Last. Suddenly Lindsay Lohan's mugshot progression makes so much more sense. Was listening to a podcast on the West Memphis 3 TL. 3 dudes got life in prison for murdering a bunch of kids, but they were actually all innocent. One of the guys said the worst thing about prison was that during the summer, there was a million mosquitoes in his cell. The entire wall of his cell was red from the blood of all the dead mosquitoes he would slap and punch every day. They would be in his cell 247 just stinging him non-stop, while he slept, while he was taking a dump, while he was jerking off. It never ended. Most summer days he would just lay on the floor crying, wishing for death. I guess it's not really ducked up, but my dad said it drove him crazy when people wouldn't wear slippers in the showers, as without slippers it was one of the quickest ways to get nasty foot fungus. Guards can and will withhold medical treatment. When I was in county jail, there was an older woman vomiting profusely. She couldn't keep water down, her skin was tenting, and she was hallucinating. I explained all this to the guards, and that she needed medical treatment immediately. For 2 days she was like that, until I transferred out. I have no idea what happened to that woman, and I still think about her. This was in Georgia, USA. Not in prison, but I volunteer in one. One time I was chatting up this huge black dude and I asked him what he did in his free time. He said he played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. I was shocked. On the outside he would never be mistaken for a D&D player. White guy on the other side of me told me that D&D was huge in prison. I had no idea. Also, same guy makes tacos for everyone else and makes money doing it. I think he has a hot plate in his cell and uses commissary items as ingredients. In PC, the guys with really sick crimes compare them with one another. In fact, they don't necessarily get beat up because what they have done in the past. It's because they are bragging about it in the present. My sister is in prison, and for me, it's the access to the black market. Specifically, it's very easy to get hard drugs. Imagine sitting around with nothing to do, hating your situation, fighting depression and knowing you can just get some cheap heroin. They use money from canteen, relatives, favors, etc. It's also generally accepted that if someone gets in trouble, getting them out of it is just a matter of sending $50 to a random Western Union. Also applies if they want to be moved to a different cell. On a slightly lighter side, a sort of family friend recently got out of prison after 18 years for holding up a gas station for drug money. My uncle was his friend, and when the guy got out, my uncle said, "Man, there's this show you're gonna love called Game of Thrones." The guy laughed and said he was current on it. The in-prison black market was his source for a tiny 2-inch battery-powered screen and micro SD cards with the episodes on it. Every now and then it would be confiscated as contraband and he'd have to save up for a month to buy another. He also had a prison cat that knew to leave his cell before morning activities and to come back after lights out. He'd feed it little chunks of meat he smuggled out of the mess hall. One big thing for him was making sure to train the cat who to go to next, because there's definitely some people that would have killed it just for the unique experience. Edit. Humorously enough, my brother found the post and corrected something. He says the tiny little TV was something they were allowed to have, but the SD cards were what was contraband. Apologies for the mistake. You never wake up feeling safe, ever. There is so much hanging over your head that you may not be in control of, that the stress level is through the roof. For a non-Western prison in an anonymous country, they keep statistics on inmates, but often report false cause of death. When a prisoner is found tied to a bed beaten to death, he would be checked into hospital for a week before they finally report his death due to natural causes like cardiac arrest or dehydration. Administration staff do not want to get involved in keeping order, so they have a group of prisoners they elect to do it for them. This means this group gets special privileges from administration staff, where they turn a blind eye to abuse for the sake of keeping order. The ruling group gets unlimited power to extort, abuse and otherwise exploit everyone else, as long as they keep violence and the rest of the population down. The official staff keeps a distance and away from harm, but the rest of the prisoners are subject to a ruthless gang. The administration staff only interferes if their elected group does not keep order, which is when they elect a different gang to the role. Administration staff will manipulate rebellious inmates. They will create sympathy between the inmate and themselves, and encourage them to stand up for what's right. They say they have a plan to help and continue meeting with these inmates. But any inmate that has repeated meetings with administration staff is seen as a tattletale that reports other inmate offenses. When others find out they meet with administration regularly, they do not last long. This is how the official staff remove people that rebel against the system. Then they report their death as a natural cause. 1 week later, everyone knows to stay out of this business, but sometimes people get trapped. Inmates will accuse other inmates they don't like of being tattletales to get them removed. They have no way out. They cannot go to the administration staff because they keep this system alive, and they cannot communicate with the outside world because all communication is intercepted. My husband spent a little time in prison. He's been out now for 6 years. One thing I always found interesting is everything can be currency in prison, and I mean everything. From cigarettes to any extra food from commissary, socks, deodorant. There's an intricate trade system, and anything that's not your basic scrubs or what they give you walking in the door has a value. Not exactly a secret, but prisons make $sign off commissary. Many PPL think the prison system purposely underfeeds its inmates, so they are more compelled to buy off them. $1. 54.75 pastries, ramen packs for $1, prop, 33 CEPA, $10 for $1 luncheons, etc. etc. Also the insane costs for phone calls. Not me, but my mother. They had to put her in her own area because she was pregnant and people kept threatening the baby. It also happened that a cellmate was a woman who boiled her child alive and ate it, which this happened before the woman went to jail, not during the time she was incarcerated. Edit, I should have said in the beginning it was a county jail, not big time prison. Edit 2, spelling edit 3, had to add in a time reference for the cannibal woman, because some people don't know how to read properly. When they call you for court they wake you up at 2 AM, and put you in a holding tank for another 6 to 8 hours. Shackle you up, and take you to court to another holding tank waiting for your court time. After that, pretty much the same process. You'll be back in your cell around 5 to 6 PM. I didn't go to prison, but I went to jail. And what ducked me up the most is, when it would rain, or when they would cut the grass around the jail, we could smell the rain or the fresh cut grass through the vents. I laid there just wishing I could go mow the grass outside. I found that the worst part of being locked up is you are deprived of all of your senses. You taste horrible things, you smell horrible things, you feel horrible things, you hear horrible things, and see horrible things. All around it's a horrible place to be. And it's really hard to truly understand that, unless you have been locked up. I have 2 friends who were in jail prison. Women also can get turned out, or made into punks, and beat up by other WOM also. It was extremely easy for them to get any drug they wanted in prison, but it would cost a lot more than it would outside of prison. I'm not sure if these are really that ducked up or unknown though.